Let's go through the final assignment in the module about layers and shapes. So what we can see in here is that there's definitely going to be masking involved, and there are also going to be some simple shapes that we need to draw in here. So let's start things off by drawing a frame like this. I'm immediately going to add fill to it just so that we know what we're working with. I feel like it has a radial fill that goes from white to somewhat of a bluish tone in here. Okay, perfect. It seems to be starting off on this point in here, and it goes to a point like this, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, amazing. And then I just need to resize it a little bit too to place it in here. Perfect, we have our frame. Let's add a stroke to it because I do see one. Let's copy the color of the stroke, and let's also add some kind of a shadow to it because there's also definitely a shadow in here that I can see. It's a really subtle shadow, maybe even more subtle than this, but yeah. Okay, I think we have a great starting point. Now what we can do is we can create this amazing offer. I'm gonna do it by drawing a star in here, making it maybe a little bit too big, but that doesn't matter too much right now in the beginning. And let's make this bigger. I think even bigger than that. Probably something like this. Okay, now I can scale it down to what feels a more relevant size, something like this. I'll place it in here like that. And I do feel like once we add the text in here, we can just rotate this entire shape together. So I'm gonna place in amazing offer. The O is large, it's centered. I'll break the style off because it's definitely smaller than what we're using there, and definitely bolder. So maybe something like this, and let's rotate it by a couple of degrees, something like that. Okay, I think we did a pretty good job in here. Let's see what else do we have. We have some kind of a subtle linear fill, or maybe it's just the color. Honestly, it could be just a solid color. So I'll just color pick it from here. There's definitely a stroke there. It's a little bit bigger. And let's grab the stroke color. Oh, now I see it also has some kind of a shadow. Sorry about this. Perfect, but it also changed the fill for some reason, so maybe I didn't select this. I selected something under the selection color. I don't remember. But okay, it's important that we noticed it and changed it. And now let's also add the shadow to it. It feels like it's gonna be the green one, maybe from the stroke, and it's a little bit bigger, but also not as noticeable as in some other areas. Okay, what else do we have in here? We also have this kind of stellar bike title. We also have a couple of stars like this to represent the quality of the product. 3, 4, 5. I know that we didn't go over the auto layout function just yet, but I'll hit Shift A just to keep this as an auto layout for now. Or just to make it simpler, I'm just gonna turn it into a group. Hopefully that makes sense. And then we're gonna have this. And what I can see in here is that also there is another shape maybe over this one. That doesn't have all of the other errors. So if you notice me, I selected all of the lines that are not going to be needed. I held shift on my keyboard and then I hit backspace to erase it. So now between this and this dot, there's just like one single line connecting them instead of all of the points and lines that were in here previously. And now we have the correct shape, and I can just go in here and recolor it to make it a half star treatment. The stellar bike is a little bit bigger and a little bit lighter, something like this, but unsure if that's correct. I know that I rarely use black as text, so yeah, even when I was making this example, I didn't use black for it. And this is already looking pretty good. Now the final thing is copying this down below, making it a little bit smaller, making it regular. 4990. One thing I could have done is align the text to the left, so even if I make some changes in the future, the text is not going to dance around the screen. And I think this solves everything that's not connected to masking. I do feel like these items are a little bit more on that side, but I'll keep it in here for now. And then it's time for our final part of this assignment, which is masking this. So let's see. We don't have any specific instructions for it because these are the final assignments. We need to analyze what's on the left side on the reference, and we need to get as close to that solution as possible. So one thing I want to do is I do definitely want to quickly go over here and figure out what the mask is going to be. So there's going to be this rectangular shape that's going to appear in place. And I do want to remove the clip content from here for now. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to create another frame inside of this card that's gonna have a clipping mask turned on. And I think I'm gonna make it maybe like this. You can see that now inside of our main card frame, we have a frame, and you can call it like card if it's easier for you to kind of organize your file that way. And in there, I'm gonna actually place the image of this bike driver. I'm gonna try to position it the best I can to what's gonna be needed in here. It feels like the face is still inside, so probably something like this is gonna work. And now, once we have that ready, the only other thing that we need to think about is ensuring that the tire and also the hair are kind of sticking out. And that's one of the reasons why I made this frame kind of clip the image. And now I'm gonna use a different, basically I'm gonna place this image in here over everything else in here, try to position it to the exact spot so that those two overlap. I'm using opacity of 50 to try to nail it, and I think I just did. Awesome. And now you can see that the image is actually kind of appearing outside of the card because this card doesn't have clipping content turned on. And to create the mask, we only need to go in here, turn on the pen tool, kind of draw the shape of the hair. Again, try to be as close to the right solution as you can. I'm not going to be too detailed about it just because it doesn't make too much sense for you to watch me kind of try to get it pixel perfect point. I think there's also area in here that's gonna be needed, so I'm gonna do that. Perfect. It's important not to kind of leave your mouse, still kind of keep pressing on it if you want to change the curve of the point. So like this. And in here, I can just make like a simple curve because all of these other areas are not really important for our mask. Okay, now we have the shape for the mask. I'm going to place it outside of the frame 9 because that one had clipping content on. I'm going to remove the stroke. I'm going to add a fill because if I use stroke and not fill, the mask is only going to apply to the stroke and not to the filled area. And now in here, I'm going to make this a mask. I'm going to make this 100% size, and that's it. That's perfect. There's one more thing that I need to think about, and that's kind of ensuring that there's this kind of a blurry effect in here. And I feel like it was created maybe even by blurring the mask. So effects, layer blur. Doesn't seem like it. So maybe the other way that it was created is this is going to be duplicated and then effects, layer blur by a couple points and then make it go below it so that it doesn't intervene with what's in here. Yeah, I think that's more closer to how it was done. I'm just going to make the opacity a lot lighter, maybe something like 50% to ensure that it works. And yeah, here we have it. We have created a card UI for a particular bike, and we also used masking to achieve a really cool and sexy design effect where elements are kind of going outside of the main card.